This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
We're asking 80-year-olds to use something designed for 30-year-olds, 50-year difference. No wonder standard technology, and I say that in kind of a bad way. Standard technology was not designed for seniors. So we just said, we'll design something for scratch for the unique, wonderful capabilities of super seniors, those over the age of 75, and off we went. That's 10 years ago. We quickly realized there's an enormous market and an enormous need, and that's what we've been focused on.
This is the Heart of Hospice podcast with Helen Power. GrandPad founders Scott and Isaac Lean are with me today to talk about how GrandPad is safely and simply keeping senior adults connected with loved ones. Whether you're a family caregiver or an end-of-life professional, the Heart of Hospice is here to enhance your hospice experience by connecting you with information you can use about end-of-life care. So my guests today are a father and son act, the co-founders of GrandPad. I have Scott Lean, who's the dad, and Isaac, who's the son. They are encore guests on the podcast. I think this is Scott's third time on the show, to talk about GrandPad, but it's one of my favorite things, and you'll hear this in the interview. My mom has a GrandPad, and we have more fun with it. There's so many things that seniors can do with the GrandPad, and it's just a great product, and it's so much more than a product. It's a service, and you're going to hear why, and you'll understand why it's so special. So Scott Lean is GrandPad's Chief Executive Officer, and Isaac Lean is the co-founder and strategic lead. His grandmother's inability to use email and Facebook drove him and Scott to create GrandPad's senior-friendly, solutions-focused tablet. And they're always looking for innovative ways to keep older generations connected to their younger family members. And you're going to hear more about that story and how they do that in my conversation with them. So here's my interview with Scott and Isaac Lean of GrandPad. Isaac and Scott, welcome back to the podcast. It's great to see you guys again.
Great to be with you.
I always forget that my listeners can't see you. We're lucky enough to be connected via Zoom, so I get to see your faces, which is nice. It's been a while since we connected. I'm excited to hear about what GrandPad's been up to, where you guys are going, and the new features that you have going on. You guys have a personal story and a personal catalyst for starting GrandPad. Tell me about how you got it started and why you felt like those services that it provides were necessary. Isaac, we'll go with you.
So GrandPad started out of a personal need in our own family. And, the situation we were in was myself, my parents, we were living out in California. All my grandparents and extended family lived in northern Iowa in the Midwest. And that was a big geographic difference. Now, typically, these days you can do video calls with people, send photos, messaging, and you could stay pretty well in touch. But the challenge was all of my grandparents, they didn't grow up with technology. They were in their, late 70s and early 80s, and doing things like a video call was just very challenging. My grandma, we tried to teach her, how to use Skype, and she could kind of fumble through it sometimes, but Skype would update. And when it did, she no longer knew how to do it. Even if we printed out instructions for her, she would follow them, but Skype updated, and now those instructions were out of date, which meant we couldn't communicate in a rich way. So what we kind of did was, my dad and I are both people with the technology background, and we just started brainstorming. One year it was my Christmas break, my freshman year of college in California. And we started thinking like, what would a solution look like that would allow us to stay in touch with the grandparents? And that was where the idea for GrandPad came. It wasn't even a company idea at that point. It was just like, hey, can we go build something that can solve this? And, we quickly built a prototype and tested video calling with my grandma, and she was able to do a call and it worked perfectly. So once we did that, we realized, hey, this might be something that other people could benefit from. And that's kind of where the origin of the company was born.
I would just add to that for me, the lightning bolt moment was when my mom, who was 80 at the time and was such a wonderful person and a brilliant lady. She was running her own business still at that time, a children's bookstore. And she was all about family and family connections. And we were trying to do Skype and these things. This is 10 years ago, way before the days of Zoom. And she wanted to see us. She wanted to see the photos and videos of Isaac and growing up and being in high school in California and so on. But because technology was so difficult to use for her as an 80-year-old, what she said to me, and it just broke my heart, she said, yeah, when I try to use Skype or the computer, it just makes me feel so stupid. And I said, Mom, of course, you're not stupid, Mom. I'm so sorry. And, again, us both being tech guys, and I was working in Silicon Valley at the time. I said, Mom, it's not your fault. It's our fault. We, society, are forcing you to use technology that was designed by 30-year-olds for 30-year-olds. No one ever designed a solution for the unique and wonderful, brilliant needs of someone who's 80, 90, or 100. And I realize that that's akin to, we all know cars are designed for adults. We would never expect a 10-year-old child to drive an automobile, right? It'd be dangerous and uncomfortable for all parties involved, right? But think about that. By the time a 10-year-old grows up to be a 20-year-old, they're able to drive, and that all works pretty good. Only a 10-year difference. We're asking 80-year-olds to use something to design for 30-year-olds, 50-year difference. No wonder standard technology. And I say that in kind of a bad way. Standard technology was not designed for seniors. So we just said, we'll design something for scratch for the unique, wonderful capabilities of super seniors, those over the age of 75. And off we went. That's 10 years ago. We quickly realized there's an enormous market and an enormous need. And that's what we've been focused on.
I love that in a way you're carrying on your mom's legacy, her value of family. And you've done it using technology. And I've said this on the podcast so many times because I believe in hospice and end-of-life care that technology should never replace touch, right? Telehealth should never replace in-person care. However, I think we can leverage the technology. And if the pandemic has not shown us that we can do that, then we haven't learned anything.
That's right.
We have not learned anything. So let's talk about some of the basic stuff that GrandPad offers. We've talked about this before, but it's worth revisiting because GrandPad has some really unique features. And I want to talk about them because my mom has a GrandPad. She's had it since before I got acquainted with you guys. And I want to share how she uses some of those things. So tell me about some of the basic features, Isaac.
Sure. So the easiest way to think about GrandPad is it allows people who struggle with technology to do all the things that the rest of us do on our smartphones every day. So that means things like photos, photo sharing, viewing family photos, doing phone calls, video calls, sending and receiving emails, playing games, listening to music. But we do all those things, again, in a way that was designed for people like my grandma. So for instance, yes, you can phone call and video call from GrandPad, but my grandma used to get spam calls all the time on her landline phone and when she had a flip phone. And she almost got scammed out of thousands of dollars. And they caught her at the Western Union and said, no, don't wire the money because this is probably a scam. And it was someone pretending to be one of her grandkids. So you can call on GrandPad, but we go in and we actually block any inbound callers who aren't known in that family trusted circle. So by default, it's a curated list of people. So no spammers will ever be able to call the GrandPad or email the GrandPad. So you can think of it does all the great things you can do on a smartphone, designed for elderly people, but with a layer of security and privacy that isn't part of standard devices.
And wrapped with 24/7 by 365 customer care. So as you know, anytime there's a big red help button, you press that help button, you're immediately within less than 15 seconds connected to one of our GrandPad employees who's there 24 hours a day. And we don't even own one of those press 1 for this, 3 for this, 10 for that, enter your 16-digit customer number. Just, things that would confuse any of us and surely frustrate someone who's 90 and has hearing issues. And you're connected with a loving, caring customer care person who's trained and specifically hired because they love working with elderly people. And they can answer any questions. They can remotely, if you need to restart your GrandPad or need some help with something, they can remotely do that. So that customer care is just a key part of it as well.
So I have a personal story related to both of those things, the security part and the customer service part with GrandPad. So my mom was scammed the exact same way that you're describing, Isaac, which happens all over the country to thousands of older adults these days. But it was the exact same thing. Called her landline, made her think that it was a grandchild who was in a great deal of trouble and had her wire money. I think there were 5 transactions through Western Union. Fortunately, because my brother became aware of the situation, and Western Union places a hold on those things to prevent that kind of scam from happening, that kind of theft. We were able to recover almost all of the money. But my mother was horrified and so embarrassed that she could not discern this. She couldn't even tell it wasn't her grandkid, right? So she was so embarrassed, didn't want anybody to know. She was ashamed of it. She said, "We're never going to talk of this." I said, "Yes, we are. It's okay. This happens all over the country. All over the country." So we love it that the GrandPad doesn't allow for anybody to use it with her unless they're in that trusted circle. And the customer service, we've called customer service before, and it's amazing. I don't want this interview to turn into an infomercial, but my mom's had such great experience with that. And I will tell you that, so my mom is old school with her banking. She doesn't do online banking, right? She wants to reconcile her checkbook and have her paper statement in front of her. And they've changed how they print those out. Well, she finds it very frustrating and she can't use it. So consequently, she doesn't want to manage those things. And when she has to call and go through all those tiers, press 1 if you have infinite patience, press 2 if you only hate these people just a little bit, she will not wait. She will hang up and leave a problem unsolved. She won't get any help because it drives her crazy and it makes her feel ridiculously stupid.
Yeah.
So customer service one-on-one like that is really very important. People don't realize how important that is for older adults.
Yeah, I would just add, honestly, we hope we can be an inspiration for other companies who serve seniors because they so much are craving and willing to pay for good old-fashioned customer service. Just be kind, answer the phone, follow up and own the issue and take care of it, right? And it's nothing complicated, but sadly, companies just aren't doing that anymore. And they look forward to that interaction with a human being to talk about the issue and solve it and so on. It's just like going to a fine restaurant. When you have great service, even if the food is just okay, if you have great service, it makes a delightful experience, right? That's why one of the reasons you go out to eat. And I think so many companies have lost track of that, right? And we found it actually doesn't cost more. There's no downside to having great customer service, because if you have great customer service, your customers are going to stick with you longer, and they're going to tell hundreds of people, just like you're spreading the word about GrandPad. Our word of mouth referrals is by far our best marketing tool. We measure it, we obsess about it. It's our number one priority as a company. Delight every customer every day, not serve or take care of, but delight. And that means maybe you're talking to a senior on the phone and they called you with a question on something. Maybe at the end of the call, you tell them a little joke or a quote of the day or something that inspires them and puts a smile on their face. That's what delighting is about. And that's what we try to do every day.
I love that. So when you talk about delighting, I'm going to share a story about my mom because she was just overjoyed about something that happened with GrandPad. Last November, my mom turned 90, and for her 90th birthday, she got a video message from the GrandPad team singing happy birthday to her. And she still talks about that. She was elated that they specially recorded that message and sent it to her. She thought it was so wonderful.
No, I'm glad that had that impact. That's exactly what we want to happen. We and hopefully it comes through. We feel that these wonderful people called super seniors in their 70s, 80s, 90s, our average age of our customers is 85 average. Our oldest so far is 116. And so lovely people like your mom turning 90, that's something to be celebrated. That's 90 years of life lessons and wisdom that we can all learn from. A lot of my team software engineers are, younger folks in their 20s and 30s who play a lot of video games. And in video games, you start as a level 0 and you work your way up 1, 2, 3. And when you get really good, you're a level 70, 80, or 90. You level up, right? And so the higher your age, your level, it's a badge of honor. So that's what we're trying to bring with GrandPad. Sadly, society's kind of created some of this ageism and, whoa, wow, holy cow, you're really getting old, Scott. I mean, man, I'm about to turn 60. I view that, and we on our team view that as a badge of honor. And, if you can be a level 100, or in your mom's case, a level 90, what a wonderful thing. 90 years of wisdom that she has. And so that birthday video that she got, again, I'm glad it had that impact. I did want to share because I think it's so important for us to all discuss and understand this. Sadly, we send those videos and do a special thing for every one of our customers on every birthday. On their 100th birthday, they get a real special shebang. But we get a lot of calls from seniors and say, GrandPad, you're the only people that remembered my birthday today. No one else wished me birthday. I don't have any family or friends. None of them called me. Thank you. And, and we talk to them and so on, but how sad is that? Right. And, that loneliness and isolation amongst this age group, it was bad before COVID. It's catastrophic now. So we've all got to work harder to help address that issue.
So GrandPad has its practical uses. I get that, during COVID, we would video chat with my mom just to make sure she was okay. To look at her, how she was grooming and, was her place cleaned up, that kind of thing. Was she dressed at a decent time of the day, things like that. But it also has this potential, this ability to reduce isolation for these folks. Pandemic or not, a lot of our seniors are very isolated where they live because of mobility issues, health issues, et cetera. Whatever sense of community they might have had as younger people have been lost. And so GrandPad, at the heart of all of it, really draws them to be engaged and connects them so they don't have to be isolated. And that's probably written into your business plan because I think you guys are unique. But what a wonderful service, because that's not a product, that's a service. What a wonderful way to serve the senior community.
Yeah, it is. Our slogan is simply connected. So, if it's complicated, think if your phone required you to, do all kinds of crazy things and took 5 minutes just to make a phone call, nobody would bother to do it, right? And sadly, that's what's happened. Even though COVID has kind of taught us how to all do Zooms, and it's gotten better, but it's still complicated, right? And we still hear of seniors who are trying to do a telehealth call with their doctor, and it's impossible, right? One of our grand advisors here, he's a retired doctor, brilliant man, and he's 88, but he has macular degeneration, eyesight issues, like many folks in his age. And because of that, he's trying to connect with his doctor. It's very challenging for him to use, again, standard technology that some of the hospitals and doctors require. So by simplifying that and allowing that connection, family connection, or it's with your caregivers, it's so important. And then when it's easy, people will do it all the time. It's enjoyable, right? And then we wrap the safety layer around it, as Isaac mentioned, that says, hey, you can connect with your circle of care but the bad guys can't get in. It's a walled garden. So you actually enable more communication. Because back to the scammers, what we see is because so many of the phone calls and emails and everything that seniors get are from scammers, they withdraw, right? I mean, they're literally afraid to answer the phone because it likely, the majority of the time, is a bad guy calling. With GrandPad, we flip that. The only time GrandPad rings, it's someone who's been invited into your circle of trust, family, friend, or caregiver. They look forward to it ringing and they always answer. That is a very practical, important impact in a healthcare setting, right? Think about doctors, nurses, CNAs, caregivers, hospice care providers, like they're trying to get a hold of seniors, important medical information. They call them and they don't answer because they're scared. They don't recognize the number, and it's easy to spoof numbers. So with this, those answer rates immediately go up, and now the doctors can talk to their patients as needed.
Well, after my mom was scammed like that, we told her, don't answer the phone if you don't recognize the number. Well, she has trouble seeing the screen. So my brother programmed her phone, unless you see our name, you don't answer the phone, which just made her more isolated, right? And so if she gets a call from a doctor's office or from the lab or something like that, she wouldn't necessarily know what number that was to be able to identify it. And she hates to miss phone calls because she's so socially isolated. So she would still answer. I love it that the GrandPad's basically an enclosed system.
Right.
We don't ever have to worry about that. She can always use the GrandPad safely.
Yeah, and it's important for people to know this is not our research, third-party medically validated research. Being chronically lonely and isolated is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It has the same physical and cognitive impacts as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I mean, it reduces life expectancy. And part of that, people lose their zest for life, right? They just get more withdrawn. So maybe they stop exercising, stop eating right. And it's just this vicious downward circle. They stop engaging with anything. They sit home in front of the TV and watch depressing things on TV all day, and down they go. And so just the simple acts of connecting people can reignite that spark. And I know one of the things you're interested in, find out some of the new things we're working on.
Yes, let's hear.
If I could pivot over to that, because it ties to this topic. So one of the things we recently rolled out, we've always had games for a long time, but we've enhanced our multiplayer remote games. So the way it works is Grandma and Grandpa have their GrandPad tablet. Anyone in their family circle has our free companion app that they can use on their iPhone or their iPad or their Android phone. And they can play remotely games with Grandma and Grandpa. And chess, checkers, Yahtzee, other fun games coming like that are these multiplayer games. And what's really cool, how we enhance that, we've made it super easy. I mean, multiplayer games exist out there. We didn't invent that. What we did, don't reinvent the wheel, just make it a little bit rounder, make it easier. And then we integrated it into the video call. So one of the things we've heard is, Grandpa lives in Chicago and grandson lives in Dallas, Texas. And, grandson is in college and Grandpa's 80. And, he just feels like, gosh, I just don't have that much in common. I don't have anything to talk about. I know I should call my grandpa, but I don't have we don't get to see each other. And so you say, he says, hey, Grandpa, let's play a game of chess. And Grandpa says, oh, yeah, I used to be really a great chess player. So now in the video call, they're playing a game of remote chess, 1,000 miles apart. Oh, hey, I beat you today, Grandpa. All right, let's play again tomorrow. I'll beat you tomorrow. I'm going to brush up on some of my moves. Now they've got something. And then in the course of that, playing that game, they can start to reminisce and talk about this, that, or the other thing. So, using games as a way to create connection and create dialogue and bring families together. So we rolled that out just around Christmas time this year, home run, and we see lots of new possibilities of those remote multiplayer games.
I love that. My mom uses the games, but we haven't tried the multiplayer yet. That might be a challenge for her. So I have a question about your advisory group. You have a very special advisory group. It's not 20-somethings with tech background. It's not software creators or graphic designers or coders. It's actually a group of older people who advise you on the GrandPad. And Isaac, I would love to hear about some of these people that are part of your Grand Advisors.
Yeah. So one of the, most important things about the way we build our products is our Grand Advisors team. Because as you mentioned, a bunch of 20, 30-year-olds, we don't know what it's like to be 100 years old, right? We can read about it, we can hear about it, but we don't know what it's like. So we need to have people who are in that group advising us and helping us build our products. So anything we're going to build new, we always test it out and we get early feedback from our Grand Advisor team, even just on designs or concepts. They give us feedback. They help us refine the product, and we test with them before we roll it out, to the wider group of users. We also go to that group for new ideas. What are things would you like to be able to do on GrandPad that you can't do, or what are just some problems you face in your life that we might be able to solve? And it's a really good partnership because we get lots of great ideas from them. But at the same time, our team may be able to see new technologies that our Grand Advisors haven't heard of, and we can tell them, hey, we can do X, Y, and Z now. Would that be useful? And they let us know the ways that it is or it isn't. And also, crucially, accessibility is a huge part of what we do, making devices that are accessible to people with vision challenges, cognitive challenges, dexterity challenges. So we test with our Grand Advisors who have a variety of different physical and cognitive challenges, and they allow us to build and help us build very accessible products that work for a far greater group of people than standard technology does.
I think that's amazing. Do you find, Isaac, that when your programmers, software designers are working with the Grand Advisors, I'm assuming it's a younger group of people with an older group of people, that they develop an understanding of each other? Does it change their relationships?
Yeah, it certainly it helps create an empathy for the people we're building for. So there's a big difference between, some maybe more standard process where you whiteboard out what you're going to do, you build it, you launch it, and then you never see it, right? And some companies, especially the engineers, they may never meet the customer, talk to the customer. So twofold of things we do. All of our employees have someone in their life who uses GrandPad and they use GrandPad with, and we call that the Grand Experience. So whether you're an engineer, customer service person, you're the CEO, whoever you are, part of your job, requirements when you sign our employment agreement is you have a GrandPad in your own life with a super senior and you communicate with them regularly. So we all have that level of empathy for our users. And then the same thing goes with our Grand Advisors. Our team, our product and platform team, we're meeting with them weekly. We're always getting their input. Scott and I were just at one of our Grand Advisors' house just yesterday, and we got some feedback from him. And we have a personal relationship as well as the professional feedback that he gives us on our product. So it really helps build that empathy for the people we're serving.
How old is your oldest Grand Advisor?
Let's see. Our oldest now is 102. Yeah.
102. That's awesome.
Yeah, Ed, who lives outside Milwaukee, Wisconsin, is really a special guy. 102, World War II, Pearl Harbor survivor. One of a very small group of people left, and
yes,
a wonderful human being, and has given us a lot. We've learned a lot from him. Our oldest ever was Elmer, was 106. He worked for us until 2 weeks before he passed a few years ago, and just a real fireball and fun and exciting. We learned so much from all of them. I just underline what Isaac said: deep empathy and caring. Spend time with them in their house or their apartment or their facility they live, so you can see firsthand what their life is like. We've gone and lived, of course, we've spent time with our own family members, but we've gone and lived with them and see, what is their life really like and how can we help them? And, sadly, there's so many points of frustration in their life. I mean, I'll just pick on TVs these days. I'm old enough. It used to be easy. You got up, there was an on-off switch. You turn the channels with a knob. There was no remote control. The kids were the remote control that run
right,
and change it for your mom or dad, right? TVs are impossible to run now, impossible. And they're getting harder, not better. And we see seniors struggling with these things. So we're always trying to figure out, how do we help them interact with the world, in a simpler way?
I love it. Yeah, I have a smart TV. I think we should call them smarter than we are TVs, because half the time I can't make it run. I can't make it run. My mother doesn't own a computer. She has a cell phone that would be considered an antique. It's probably in a museum somewhere, a technology museum. But what I think you're doing, bridging these generations, right? These younger professionals who are helping you with design and product with these older users and the grand advisors, you're creating relation, you're creating community, and it becomes relatable. Their experiences as older adults, senior adults, become more relatable to these younger people who won't experience that for themselves for 50, 60 years.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's amazing.
It's impossible for any of us to know what it's like to be 90. We've never been, right? We've never felt that. And, I hope we all get there and experience that. But the common thing I hear from all of these folks, and I just listened to a wonderful podcast where they're interviewing seniors and just asking them, so what does it feel like to be 90? Do you feel like you're 90? And without doubt, all of them say, maybe my knees hurt a little bit, or I get up a little slow in the morning. Maybe I can't remember everything perfectly, but they said, I feel like a 20-year-old. I feel, I'm the same person I always was, right? So there's still, even if some of their physical capabilities diminish a little bit, they're still the same person. And I just think we need to really celebrate the seniors because we have so much we can learn from them. They have such a good life perspective. And we all know, there's a lot of challenges in the world. There's a lot of mental health challenges. There's, a lot of kids, that are struggling. I think seniors can be the ones that can really help us. And the nice thing is it gives them a wonderful sense of purpose, right? They want to help. They want to contribute. That's why, we involve them in everything. We were just one of our grand advisors. We took him along to a customer meeting with a big healthcare provider. Half of our business is direct to consumer, half is with enterprise healthcare. And it was so interesting. And again, this grand advisor is brilliant. He worked in the healthcare industry. Again, because of his capabilities of being in the 80s, for him to participate in a meeting, I mean, some of the people were on Zoom and, like we all have been on Zooms where you can't hear people and you struggle, right? And, I have good hearing. And you just think about, wow, how hard is it for him to interact in the world where he can't hear, can't see, and how do you get through things? And we just don't take their unique needs into account. Society doesn't, and it's a big percentage, right? It's depending on where you cut off for seniors, it's between 15 and 30% of our population and growing are seniors.
Yes, and it's growing. It's growing. We can expect that to explode. I love it. So what do you envision for GrandPad, say in 10 years?
Yeah, there's so many things that we can do to help and that we're working on. Now, we're always careful. We want just, it's kind of the Goldilocks, not too small, not too big, but just right, because we don't want to overwhelm. We all know, I don't know, there's some crazy number, like 100 million apps now available for our phones. We all use 5 or 10 apps. And so we always try to focus on what are really the core things that seniors want and need and make those really good and really simple but sophisticated, right? So one of our sayings is simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication. Leonardo da Vinci first said that. Steve Jobs often quoted that. And so we really work hard to take something like video calling, which at a technical level, we all try to do Zooms and stuff. There's a lot going on. It can be immensely complicated. Like we've simplified that down. Boom. You can do a video call with the senior. They can initiate it. It can be recorded if you want. You can have transcription words on the screen if you want, but all done really, really simply. So that's going to continue to be our focus. I'll give you an example of something we rolled out and recently and continue to expand on that illustrates this point. We call it the Moods app. So it's beautifully curated videos, animals, puppy dogs, kitty cats, scenery, waterfalls, a Zen garden, beautiful videos with very relaxing, calming music and sounds. We did that, started that test during COVID as a way to reduce anxiety and loneliness. But now it's really grown. Seniors are using it in all kinds of therapeutic ways, and they're using it I never realized this. I should, and it's become very clear. A lot of seniors struggle sleeping, right? Falling asleep, staying asleep. Stress, worry. Maybe they've lost a spouse. It's the first time they've been, alone, and so they're now using this Moods app as a sleep therapy. Background white noise, and using that. And they'll set it next to their bed, and it's like a waterfall going, and it helps them fall asleep. So we continue to see lots of ways you can do these digital therapeutics. We, as I mentioned, more than half of our business now is B2B enterprise, working with big healthcare companies across the country where they've integrated GrandPad into their care delivery. They're doing telehealth. They're doing all types of remote care. And so we're adding lots of things there. The ability to gather key vital signs remotely through a video call, like blood pressure. We're doing things like the ability to get body weight, so a simple connected body weight scale. We've all had electronic Bluetooth body weight scales in our house, immensely complicated. We've simplified that down. Body weight, measuring that is very important, especially if people have congestive heart failure. Any sudden change in body weight can indicate problems. So integrating things like that, again, doing it in a simple way. Other things I broadly call it care coordination. So there's lots of things where the care provider needs someone to reach out to the senior and set appointments. Like, hey, we're going to do a telehealth check-in with you tomorrow at 10 a.m. And so preparing them for that call so the doctor can just come on. We all know doctors and nurses are way maxed out. So we do that care coordination on behalf of our partners. We practice with the senior, make sure they know what to do, and we remind them and get on, and we can test 10 to 10. All right, there, the doctor can come in, boom. So we're doing lots of care coordination things like that with seniors. So those are a few that we're working on, in the near term now and over the next year or two. Longer term, there's a whole bunch of things we're working on. I'd broadly call it things with sensors and safety. So we all know there's lots of ways for once people fall, I fall and I can't get up, pendants and so on. But what we don't want to detect a fall. We want to prevent a fall, right? Falls oftentimes start a downward spiral. They're, broken hips, immensely painful. And for the healthcare system, they're at the root of a lot of expense, right? So you want to prevent a fall. Well, what are ways you can do that? You work upstream. Oftentimes, maybe someone who lives in very hot, it's 100 degrees out. I don't have proper air conditioning in my apartment, maybe because of income issues. I'm not properly hydrated, so I get dehydrated. Now I get dizzy. Now I fall, right? So there's things that we could sense, like, wow, it's 90 degrees in this person's apartment. They haven't drank any water today. Let's intervene before they're dehydrated, before they fall. There's all kinds of upstream things you can do. So we're working on some really exciting things. I just broadly call that pillar safety. I have to say, I'd be remiss. We both watched, kind of on the edge of our chair, Apple's big announcement this week of the Vision Pro. I think it is a glimpse of the future where the world's moving. I don't see that today benefiting seniors in the near term, but I think there's some interesting things there that we can learn from. And again, our role is not reinvent the wheel, make the wheel a little bit rounder, make it better and safer for this elderly population. We feel like we've really built a skill set or expertise of understanding the unique needs of super seniors, so we can adapt technologies and at the right time bring them and wrap them in the ease and safety and customer care of GrandPad, and then make them available to people. So those are a few of the things we're working on.
I love it. I love the safety component. So let's close with this. Isaac, one last question for you. I understand the catalyst and the moment that you realized we need something for grandma to have, right? For you guys to stay connected. But what now, after so many years of working with GrandPad and the development team, what do you find most meaningful about the work that you're doing?
Good question. I think, when we see the individual stories of the impact that GrandPad has had on people's lives, that's the most meaningful of those stories. We've had multiple instances where we've had customers, forward us an obituary of their parent passed away. And in the obituary, they talk about how they use their GrandPad. They love playing games on their GrandPad, listening to music, and staying connected with their loved ones. And seeing the impact that could have to, be included in something as momentous as that is really meaningful to us.
Yeah, that's meaning making. It's way more than a business. Okay, so how can listeners look into connecting, finding a GrandPad for themselves, or if they're a healthcare provider, looking into purchasing GrandPad for their patients or residents?
Yeah, really easy. Just come to our website or give us a call. Like we said, we're available. We have an awesome group of our employees that will immediately answer your call. For consumers, so for any of the people who want to buy it for themselves or directly for their family, come to our consumer website, which is grandpad.net, N-E-T. And on every page, because we don't hide, we want people to call us. You'll see our 800 number, which is 800-704-9412. For any businesses, whether it's health insurance payers or providers or healthcare companies, our business-oriented website is grandpad.biz. And same thing, you can come to that website. You'll see phone numbers. You can engage with us. You can see more about our B2B enterprise healthcare offerings and some case studies and things that we're doing there. So we would love for people to call us, and we view it as a long-term relationship. We want to just help people, their families, their seniors.
Awesome. Thank you guys for coming back on the show. It's so great to talk with you.
Great. Thanks for having us. Always fun to see you.
Thanks so much.
So now you know why I'm so crazy about GrandPad. I could tell you 10 more stories about how my mom uses it because it really is wonderful. And during the pandemic, we were able to video chat with her, and she had two grandbabies, two great grandbabies that were born during the pandemic time, and she was able to see them. And it was just an amazing way of keeping her included in the family. It's not enough for her to hear about it over the phone, but for her to be able to see us and talk with us, and we could see her too. So the special thing about GrandPad is my mom's 90, and that technology piece is really challenging for her. GrandPad is designed so that the technology is easy for what they call super seniors to use. Let's face it, standard technology is not designed for older adults. And the closer I get to 60, the more challenged I am myself. It's got security and privacy. There's no spam and no robocalls coming in. And my mom was scammed. So knowing that the only connection that's coming through the GrandPad are people that she knows that are part of her network makes us feel super comfortable with it. The customer care is easy. You get a one-on-one person. I don't know of any other business that you can do that with. Even your doctor's office, right? Which should be the most personal interaction that you have. Again, press 1 if you want to punch somebody. Press 2 if this is making you crazy. It makes it so difficult. They want seniors to be connected. They want them to feel good about the connections. They want it to be easy. So the new feature they've got is they've always had games, right? You can play solitaire and different games, but now they have multiplayer games with video calls. You can also use it for healthcare-related measurements like weight, blood pressure, things like that. Then they have MoonZap, which sounds awesome to me. It's a video, beautiful scenery, waterfalls, beaches, things like that, with audio as well. And really, Scott didn't mention this particular word, but it is a way of encouraging mindfulness or practicing mindfulness. And older adults do have trouble sleeping. I think it's melatonin. I think we make less melatonin as we get older, so sleep patterns change. So what a wonderful way to use the GrandPad with all these different features. Fall prevention, other safety things coming up, and they're getting ideas. What I think he said every week or every month, they meet with their grand advisors. They're not talking about super savvy business people. They're not talking to software designers. They are talking to the older adults, 70s, 80s, 90s, or 80s, 90s, up to 100 and over, about what they need. what they like about what's there, what could be better, what could be different, and what they would like to see featured on the GrandPad. A great way to stay connected with their users. So you can look into getting a GrandPad for yourself or someone you care about at grandpad.net. And if you're a business owner and you want to partner with GrandPad, you can go to grandpad.biz, find out how you can partner with them to meet the needs of your patients or your residents in your facility. Be sure to catch the next episode of the Heart of Hospice podcast. You can find more episodes on theheartofhospice.com, and don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. You can connect with the Heart of Hospice on Facebook and Instagram and send your questions or comments by email to helen@theheartofhospice.com. And remember, no matter who you are or where you are in your hospice journey, you are the heart of hospice.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.